enemy is chasing, so he fled for his surging life. Xuan Huaifeng woke up very early this day. When he opened his eyes, Bai Xuelan was still sleeping beside him. Although he still had a lump in his heart for this man, and he was even more dissatisfied with his tricks of being drunk and cheating. Xuan Huaifeng's eyes after waking up were unconsciously fixed on that handsome and comfortable sleeping face. Probably when people first wake up, their minds are muddled, and their hearts are slightly softer and less rigid than when they are awake. And probably when a person falls asleep, especially when a man like Bai Xuelan falls asleep, he can always appear more obedient and quieter than when he is awake, defenseless, and can't help being gentle. These two probably added up. And Xuan Huaifeng's anger last night disappeared by 8 or 9 points. Bai Xuelan was missing from the room for a few days, and a whole room of uneasiness had accumulated. Now, seeing him lying on the bed in a big way, sleeping sweetly, those uneasiness were blown away like gray and disappeared without a trace. Everything is like returning to the moment before the quarrel. Like a sad dream, as soon as I opened my eyes, I saw the big sun full of windows, so bright and delightful. Xuan Huaifeng has a self-disciplined character and has never stayed in bed. When he wakes up, he should get out of bed to wash and change his clothes, but he has lost his habit at this moment and wants to stay in bed lazily for a while. He propped up his elbows on the soft pillow, held his head, and looked at Bai Xuelan with a smile. In the mysterious stillness of the morning, it became a fresh treat. Below the straight bridge of the nose, the breath is long and even, and with that breath, the firm chest slowly rises and falls. In the overflowing tenderness and satisfaction, Xuan Huaifeng suddenly had a poetic inspiration, and these things that were taken for granted in ordinary times seemed to see the mystery. Although it's just a quiet sleeping face, that breathing, that chest ups and downs, it's so simple, but it has given people a lot of comfort. Here, there is a surging life. Bai Xuelan's surging life. Xuan Huaifeng sighed comfortably in his heart, and couldn't help but stretch out his hand and caress Bai Xuelan's dark temples with his slender fingers. Afraid of waking him up, he retracted his hand and continued to hold his head, quietly enjoying the joy that belonged to him. What Adjutant Sun said is really worth thinking about. Life is not a math problem, and it is impossible to calculate 1, 2, 3 or 4. Take him as an example. He was so angry at first, so wronged, and he was thinking hard about ending his cooperation with Bai Xuelan and parting ways. But what now? It's just that Bai Xuelan drank a few cups and lay down on the bed without even saying a simple apology, and the matter seemed to pass like this. Xuan Huaifeng felt that this was unfair. However, he was not annoyed at all. Also feel happy. Bai Xuelan, you are a bully who will take advantage. Xuan Huaifeng showed a beautiful smile, put his index finger on his thumb and touched the tip of Bai Xuelan's nose. He wanted to flick him, but he held back. I don't want Bai Xuelan to wake up too soon. This person wakes up, I don't know if they will quarrel again. Xuan Huaifeng was indeed a little afraid of his temper that was uncertain and could explode at any time. Summer mornings are so charming. Birds were chirping outside the window, and a cool breeze was blowing. The wind came through the window and caressed the cool skin. Bai Xuelan's pitch-black fan-like eyelashes trembled slightly from time to time by the wind, causing Xuan Huaifeng to think he was about to wake up several times. And his heart was pounding nervously. But he did not wake up. Xuan Huaifeng just enjoyed it and watched. Finally, remembering the agreement with Xuan Huaifeng, he got up reluctantly and quietly changed his clothes and went out, taking Song Ren into the car, only to find that the driver of the Lincoln car had changed. Xuan Huaifeng asked. Xiao Li is resting today? Yuesheng, the driver who came to the top shift, glanced at Song Ren in the rear mirror. Song Ren had a normal face, half squinted his eyes, and held his chest with both hands. He was the only one who was driving, so he didn't have time to worry about other people's affairs. He smiled and nodded, which was considered to be perfunctory to Xuan Huaifeng. Yuesheng asked Xuan Huaifeng where he was going. Xuan Huaifeng remembered the lost watch, which was given by Bai Xuelan. If he really lost it, it would be difficult to explain, so he asked, I was going to go out of the city, but if I stay at home first, how much time does it take? Yuesheng said. There are not many cars on the street at this hour. If you are in a hurry, I will drive faster, half an hour less. Song Ren opened his eyes immediately and said, It is also possible to be in a hurry. You can't drive fast. The chief said that the car must drive steadily, and it's not a joke. Xuan Huaifeng said. Then stay at Nian's house first, I have something to do. When Xuan Huaifeng got out of the car, the doorman had already opened the door and waited for him. He said in a low voice, Master has gone out to work, and his wife is at home, but she probably hasn't gotten up yet. Xuan Huaifeng said, I don't think so. I'm looking for my sister. I just left something here yesterday, so I'll grab it by the way. After speaking, he entered Nian's house on his own. Passing by the vestibule, I saw Nian Gui on the steps clasping his hands and shouting at the junior servants and girls. Move them all out. Yesterday, the master said that the clay pots in the house are wet. You are too lazy, the sun is so bright, don't you? If I call you, you won't be too lazy to bask in the sun. The crowd was busy moving things in the front courtyard. Nian Gui turned his head and saw Xuan Huaifeng coming. He hurriedly bowed and asked with a smile. You're here? Madam hasn't woken up yet. You see I'm busy here. Before Xuan Huaifeng spoke, the other side of the room was in a hurry to come out alone. It turned out to be Nian Rong, who was also a servant who had worked in Nian's house for many years, and had the same qualifications as Nian Gui. When he walked up to him, he frowned at Nian Gui and said, Early in the morning. You should be quieter. You don't know that madam is still sleeping? Waking her up, you'll have to scold you. After speaking, he realized that Xuan Huaifeng was in front of him, so he hurriedly asked for peace. Xuan Huaifeng had nothing to say with these servants, just smiled and passed. I went to Zhang Mama's room first, but the room was empty. When I met a girl who was doing starch washing, Xuan Huaifeng asked. The girl said, Zhang Mama went shopping. Xuan Huaifeng asked, Why is Zhang Mama buying the vegetables now? Isn't it the cook's job? No, that's why Zhang Mama buys whatever madam eats. Xuan Huaifeng nodded, and had no choice but to go to the small wing where he washed his hands yesterday. Zhang Mama had looked for this place, and he had already reported that he had not seen it. He knew that there was no hope, but he did his best to look for it. He looked around the small wing. Not to mention the gold watch, even a little bit of gold. Have never seen. Just as he was sighing, Nian Gui walked in and asked with concern, I heard from the servant, you dropped something? It's very precious? Xuan Huaifeng said, It's a drop, but it's not very precious. Nian Gui asked, What is it? Xuan Huaifeng said, It's a watch. Did you see it? Nian Gui said, I didn't see it. But if I saw it, I would tell you. Xuan Huaifeng said, It was a gift from a friend of mine. I lost it. I'm really embarrassed to go to see my friend. If you help me find it, I will thank you very much and give you a good watch. How about it? Nian Gui said with a smile, Look at what you said. If I find it, can I steal it? Of course, I will give it back to you. This is a matter of our own, and I don't dare to covet your reward. Xuan Huaifeng looked at the time. It took more than half an hour to go back and forth. And the appointment with Xuan Huaiyin would definitely be too late. He told Nian Gui not to tell Mrs. Nian about this trivial matter and left in a hurry. I got into the car at the gate of Nian's house and said to the driver, "Go to the Yali Fan restaurant in Fengshan Mountain. Do you know this place?" Yuesheng said, "Yes. I have driven it twice." Song Ren asked, "Adjutant Xuan, what's wrong? Suddenly want to leave the city?" Xuan Huaifeng said, "I made an appointment with someone to meet at a restaurant." "Why? Do I have another prohibition against leaving the city?" Song Ren was a little embarrassed by his question, so he smiled and said, "No. The chief has made a statement. You are completely free." This sentence evoked Xuan Huaifeng's memory. It is clear that these words were said by Bai Xuelan when he was angry. But thinking that Bai Xuelan was lying on the big bed shared by the two at the moment, sleeping soundly like a child, those unpleasant snow and ice were melted by the rising sun. With a gentle smile, he knocked on the glass window and said, "Let's go, don't be late." Yuesheng got the order, started the engine, and stepped on the accelerator. The beautiful and expensive Lincoln sedan slid easily out of the gate of the Nian's house like a black fish. This day is really sunny. The weather is bright and sunny. And there are many rich people who go out to play in the city. Because of the narrow road, a car at the gate of the city was smashed into the car door by a carriage loaded with fruit passing by. The two sides quarreled, occupying most of the road, and no traffic was allowed. "The car is coming." The ragged newsboy knew the way of business very well. Holding the newspapers in his arms, he shuttled in the car, holding the newspaper in his hand and shouting headlines. Enemy planes bombed Jinan, and civilians were killed and injured more than 1,000. The Prime Minister is determined to fight heroin hard, and the addicts will go to jail. 1 cent. Xuan Huaifeng rolled down the car window, called the newsboy over, and bought a copy. Looking at it, there is indeed news about anti-drugs. Song Ren didn't know how to write, so he stared blankly beside him, and Xuan Huaifeng read a few words to him. Song Ren excitedly said, "It's good to be brave. The chief and the adjutant Xuan are people from heaven. They can do big things, and they can also be published in the newspaper. I have nothing to do with it. However, now I'm just blowing the air to the common people and giving some reminders, and when the new regulations come out in the future, I'll see the real work." A few car horns blared in front. The quarreling carriage and car finally moved away, and the car dragon slowly evacuated. By the time the Lincoln car passed the city gate and drove straight to Fengshan Mountain, the time agreed with Xuan Huaiyin was about 20 minutes late. Xuan Huaifeng entered the Yalifan restaurant and saw that the seats were full. Many fashionable girls and young men in suits were eating, drinking and laughing gracefully on the seats, but Xuan Huaiyin could not be seen. Just as he was worried that he was late, Xuan Huaiyin had already left. Suddenly, I saw a person walking out from the depths of the corridor of the restaurant in front of me, waving to him frequently. It was Xuan Huaiyin. Xuan Huaifeng hurried over. As soon as he arrived in front of him, Xuan Huaiyin asked impatiently, "Why did you come so late?" "I'm almost leaving." Xuan Huaifeng said, "I'm sorry, the car arrived at the city gate. Just happened to." After he finished speaking, Xuan Huaiyin stopped him and said, "Okay, I don't have time to listen to that. Anyway, I'm unlucky. After waiting for a long time, I can go in and talk." Xuan Huaifeng followed him into the box. As soon as I entered the door, I saw a well-dressed and delicate girl, standing up on the seat, looking at him with red cheeks. Xuan Huaiyin said to her, "What are you doing standing there stupidly? Didn't you say you met him at Shuyan Pavilion? Did you forget what he looked like?" Only then did Xiao Feiyan say, "Remember, this is Adjutant Xuan." She smiled at Xuan Huaifeng. Xuan Huaifeng said, "My second brother is a person like Song Zhang and his like, and he is very sympathetic to the fragrance and Jade. He is afraid that Commander Zhang Luzhao will sell you to a shameful place, and he is willing to pay for you to go back. Would you like to?" Xiao Feiyan turned her eyes to Xuan Huaifeng again. Unexpectedly, Xuan Huaifeng spoke so clearly in front of other girls, but he was a little embarrassed. He nodded slightly to Xiao Feiyan and asked, "How are you doing this time? Someone misses you very much. She asks you about your safety from time to time." The someone was naturally the loyal girl Li Hua from Shuyan Pavilion. However, Xiao Feiyan seemed to have the wrong idea. Seeing Xuan Huaifeng's eyes with a hint of shyness, she smiled coquettishly and said, "I have a good life, thanks to you. Adjutant Xuan. You are a good person. I know that you will be good to me if you redeem me." Xuan Huaifeng knew that he had said something misleading, and was even more embarrassed. He couldn't tell the difference, so he could only smile. Fortunately, Xuan Huaifeng opened the topic and asked Xuan Huaifeng, "Second brother, what I promised to do, I have already done it. The person is right in front of you at the moment. Money, you can't short me." Xuan Huaifeng hurriedly said, "Of course, I can't ask you to take risks for me." Xuan Huaifeng said, "Then, how much money did you bring here? I'm fighting for this job. Those who have issued a letter of guarantee must bring back at least 10,000 yuan before they can explain it." Xuan Huaifeng was stunned for a moment. Song Ren didn't know the purpose of Xuan Huaifeng's visit to the restaurant. He had a fight with Zhan Luzhao, so he naturally knew that the third brother of Adjutant Xuan was Zhan Luzhao's adjutant. When he saw Xuan Huaifeng, he was already vigilant. At first, he was thinking of the brother's words, so he shouldn't interrupt. Now that I heard Xuan Huaifeng's asking for a sky-high price of 10,000 yuan, I couldn't bear it any longer, and immediately said, "Adjutant Xuan Huaifeng, this price is not right. Is it worth it?" Seeing him interject, Xuan Huaifeng looked at him disdainfully, and asked with a smirk, "Why is the price wrong? You don't go out, and you don't know what's going on outside. In recent months, money has become so cheap that it doesn't look like money. Jinan is not. Have you been attacked by the enemy's air attack? Many materials cannot be transported, and prices have skyrocketed everywhere. The rich are fleeing to the capital, and the more people spend, the less things. A dime of cabbage may not be worth $1 now. Buy it. Not to mention buying a beautiful and well-bred good girl? If the price is not good, it's okay, the big deal is I'll take her back." Song Ren stared again. Xuan Huaifeng hurriedly stopped Song Ren and said, "You don't understand what's going on here. Don't talk about it." Xiao Feiyan also saw the problem with money. Her face blushed and said, "Adjutant Xuan, you don't be embarrassed. I am an ignorant and stupid person. Go elsewhere and catch a lot of money. It's boring to spend money on me." Xuan Huaifeng said, "No. There is no place for hesitation. It's just that the amount is insufficient. And I don't have enough cash. I'm ashamed." Song Ren was stopped by Xuan Huaifeng and saw Xiao Feiyan again. "Just shut up." Xuan Huaifeng asked, "How much did you bring?" Xuan Huaifeng took out a neat stack of cash in his pocket and said, 6,000 yuan. This time he came to redeem Xiao Feiyan, and he had guessed it earlier. He needs to spend money. Before going out, he has already taken out his salary for a few months. He has never done anything to redeem a woman, and he has no standard to measure it. Thinking that it is always good to bring a little more, he also asks the accountant, "Salary advance for 2 months. I thought that 6,000 yuan should be enough. Who knows otherwise? Also, how can a living person be marked with a worldly price?" This high speaking, which was redeemed for Xiao Feiyan, was also boasted to Xuan Huaifeng by himself. Xuan Huaifeng put the stack of banknotes in his hand, sipped it with his thumb indifferently, and only raised his lips and smiled. Xuan Huaifeng said, I did a job in the customs office for a while. And my salary is here. Xuan Huaifeng showed a surprised face and asked, that Chief Pai, won't he give you money? Xuan Huaifeng said, why? My monthly salary is already very high. Xuan Huaifeng said, salary is salary, that's another matter. Didn't he give you a checkbook? If so, that one doesn't pay too much attention to you. Xuan Huaifeng's cheeks warmed slightly. Bai Xuelan had mentioned to open a bank account for him and get a checkbook for him. But he was not someone who often spends money, so he refused at that time. It's just the matter between these two people, there is no need to tell others. Xuan Huaifeng thought about it for a while. And then discussed it. Why don't you just wait for me? I'll go back by car, I'll pay 4,000 in advance to the cashier, and bring it over to you. What do you think? Xiao Feiyan hanging her hands and listening shyly, she said, Adjutant Xuan, you are really kind. But for me, it's not worth it. Xuan Huaifeng smiled and said, second brother. You also, I can't bear to see it. With these 4,000 yuan, am I still afraid that you will lose me? As long as you write an IOU of 4,000 yuan, it will be done. Before Xuan Huaifeng spoke, Song Ren's brows wrinkled again, and he opened his mouth and said, Mr. Xuan, this is not authentic. Ordinary friends have some sympathy for them, not to mention that Adjutant Xuan is your brother. Can't you believe him? It's just a few $1,000s. If you force your own brother to make an IOU and say it, your face will be disgraceful, isn't it? He is big, full of anger, and loud. And even if he doesn't roar hard, he can still speak loudly. There is a kind of courage that makes people feel irresistible. Xuan Huaifeng followed Zhan Luzhao to do a profitable business. And his vision was also widened. It was usually a few thousand yuan, and he said these words because of the sourness in his heart, and he deliberately embarrassed Xuan Huaifeng. Seeing Song Ren coming out, Xuan Huaifeng's heart sank, and he thought bitterly, why do people in this world hold him like a phoenix egg? Even a rude stinky guard is so dedicated. I am afraid he will be eaten. However, he promised to be full of Zhan Luzhao, slapped his chest and promised to get things done. If Xuan Huaifeng runs away from anger now and things fail, I don't know how much I will be annoyed by Zhan Luzhao when I go back. Therefore, Xuan Huaifeng sipped Song Ren's words, but turned to a more relaxed attitude and said with a smile, it seems that if I don't do personal favors, it will be really disgraceful. Alright, people, you will receive it today. Let's go, I'll take the 6,000 first, and the remaining 4,000, which is convenient for the second brother. I don't have a fixed time limit. I can give it to you when I have money. The big deal, I will also post a copy of my salary here. Head payment, it's a good deed. Do you think it's okay? Xuan Huaifeng was surprised that the third brother was so easy to talk, and his heart was relieved, and he said, okay. Don't worry. I will give you the 4,000 yuan as soon as possible. Xuan Huaifeng sipped and asked again, what, little girl, am I being nice to you? As he said that, he turned his head and winked at Xiao Feiyan. Xiao Feiyan smiled shyly and said in a low voice, Adjutant Xuan, you are also a kind person. I will remember your kindness. The matter was settled. Xuan Huaifeng thought that Bai Xuelan was in the mansion. I wondered if he was awake. The two just showed signs of reconciliation. He wanted to go back immediately to see his attitude. So he proposed to leave. Xuan Huaifeng stopped and said, second brother, just now your guard said I was not authentic, sorry, I will leave those words intact and pass them on to you. I have done you a big favor and worked hard. If you come here, you can't get a penny, and you're still carrying a blank check of 4,000 yuan out of thin air. You're reluctant to invite me to eat even a meal? Xuan Huaifeng understood and said with a smile, yes, I should be the host. Several people sat down at the dining table. Xuan Huaifeng asked the waiter to bring over the dish brand, handed it to Xuan Huaiyan, and said, I should invite your guests, please order. Xuan Huaiyan sipped but didn't take it. He swung his hand in the air and murmured, there are only a few dishes that come and go, you don't need to look at the brand. He casually said a few big dishes. The waiter took note of them one by one and went down to follow suit. After a while, all the dishes were served. Because Xuan Huaifeng redeemed Xiao Feiyan's body, Xiao Feiyan was very sensible and first sat well beside Xuan Huaifeng. As usual, the main dish of food is one serving per person. Seeing that she can't help Xuan Huaifeng with the dishes, she often brings the glass kettle with Western beauty on the table to help Xuan Huaifeng to add water frequently. It made Xuan Huaifeng feel embarrassed. He smelled the faint aroma of fat powder around him and felt uncomfortable. He thanked Xiao Feiyan repeatedly and asked, why don't you eat it? Xiao Feiyan said, okay. I'll eat it a little. Learning from Xuan Huaifeng's way of holding a knife and fork, she cut a small piece, put it in her mouth, and chewed it carefully. Song Ren was also greeted by Xuan Huaifeng and sat down to eat together. The two brothers of the Xuan family sat facing each other, and he sat between them. There is no white wine in the fan restaurant, and he doesn't like red wine from foreigners, so like Xuan Huaifeng, he also drank cold water and emptied his own glass of water in one breath. Because seeing Xiao Feiyan always put the glass kettle on, he couldn't help but feel suspicious, handed over the crystal clear glass, and said, excuse me. Xiao Feiyan poured him a glass. Song Ren picked it up, not forgetting to bring it to his lips, first put it on the tip of his nose and sniffed. This move caught Xuan Huaiyan's attention, and he asked with some dissatisfaction. What, are you still afraid that we would be drugged? For 4,000 yuan, I'm worth it? Song Ren said, I'm sorry, I'm not suspicious of you. It's really an old habit. In the past, when I was in Shandong to suppress bandits in the mountains, I must have a 12-point spirit when I passed by the village to borrow water. In those places, the bandit family, if I am not careful, will follow the way of others. Now it is typing. I can't change this old habit of being suspicious. Xuan Huaiyan sneered and said, it turns out that I still carry the suspicion of a bandit on my back. Xuan Huaifeng said, third brother, he is a rough person and doesn't know how to speak. Why should you care about him? Come. Eat vegetables. Song Ren, seeing that Song Ren had drank the water from the cup, knew that the water should be fine, so he drank it with confidence. It is not too late to eat a meal. And it takes less than half an hour. Xuan Huaifeng sipped all the large bills on Xuan Huaiyan's body, and the remaining small bills were taken out, just enough to check out. He led Xiao Feiyan out, got into the Lincoln car, and said to the driver, go back to the mansion. The driver drove the car toward the road back to the city. From Fengshan Mountain to the city, there is a long desolate road. There are no houses on both sides, just some wild forests. Xuan Huaifeng sat in the car and looked at the people around him with their heads bowed and silent, and their petite bodies squeezed in the seats. Xiao Feiyan thought that she was probably afraid of life, so she might be left alone for a while. Then she turned her head and looked at the green poplar tree outside the window occasionally appearing, and then flew back quickly. The wild fields and forests that appear endlessly in the field of vision are similar in appearance, and they have a hypnotic effect. Xuan Huaifeng watched, gradually becoming sleepy, his eyelids drooping down. When he was about to fall asleep, he suddenly heard a loud shout from Song Ren, who was in the same car, like a thunder in his ear. Look at the road. Then he rushed forward suddenly, almost hitting the back of the front seat. Xuan Huaifeng suddenly woke up a little, and tried to open his eyes to look around. It turned out that the car had slammed to a stop, but it was no longer on the road, and was on the side of the field. Song Ren gave the driver a slap in the face, and scolded and asked, "Looking for death? How do you drive the car?" The driver said with a sad face, "I don't know what's going on, twisted." Just as Song Ren was about to fight again, suddenly a sense of tiredness hit him, and he had the urge to yawn. He was an experienced person, so he was taken aback and turned around to ask Xuan Huaifeng, "Adjutant Xuan, are you sleepy too?" Xuan Huaifeng said, "I just want to sleep." Song Ren's expression changed, and he quickly said, "Open the car door." "Mother." The boat capsized in the gutter. The three quickly opened the car door. The driver and Song Ren both got out of the car and saw that Xuan Huaifeng was still leaning halfway in the car. Song Ren asked anxiously, "What are you doing?" Xuan Huaifeng said, "Xiao Feiyan is silent." Song Ren pulled him away, probed into the back seat by himself, sniffed, and withdrew his body, saying, "Needless to say, the powder on this girl's body is weird. She was the first to be fascinated. This place is not suitable. Thank you for staying for a long time, fortunately. The chief is thoughtful." He craned his neck to look around. Xuan Huaifeng asked inexplicably, "What do you think is thoughtful?" Song Ren said, "You never go out with a car." The chief said that the mantis catches the cicada, and the oriole is behind. There is another car behind the Lincoln car. Follow along, it'll be there in a while. We have to get in that car and leave. As he was speaking, the sound of the car's engine was already heard. Sure enough, a car came far away. Song Ren saw it, raised his hands and waved. When the car saw it, it slowed down and drove towards them. When they reached 200 or 300 meters, there was a loud bang, and the black car shot out countless fragments. Xuan Huaifeng's eyes flashed, and Song Ren was slammed to the ground, his knees and chest hurt by the gravel on the ground. For a moment, my mind went hazy. When he raised his head again, his field of vision was swaying, and his ears were affected by the loud explosion just now, buzzing and resounding, and after being slapped twice, he realized that Song Ren was excited and yelling at himself. He couldn't hear what Song Ren was talking about for a while, but when he was about to ask, he was suddenly pulled on his shoulder by Song Ren, and his feet involuntarily ran in the direction of Song Ren's pulling. I don't know when a few tall men appeared, with cloth covering their faces and guns in their hands, pressing towards them. Xuan Huaifeng was shocked and suddenly understood. There was no need for Song Ren to pull, and followed Song Ren to run desperately. The men in the back were slowly approaching. Seeing that they were about to run, they shouted, "Grab! Grab!" They also started running after them. Song Ren roared, "Go into the woods." Xuan Huaifeng also knew that in the open field, he would definitely fall into the enemy's hands. Now only the woods can hide for a while. The wind whistled like a horn in his ears, and he suddenly rushed across a field. He was about to enter the woods under the slope, but two people suddenly got out in front of him, blocking the way. One of them was wearing long military boots, with deep eyebrows and not much expression on his face. But his eyes were filled with the excitement of the prey falling into his palms. It was the commander of the Guangdong army who had been beaten in the White Mansion, and it was very obvious. Zhan Luzhao saw Xuan Huaifeng running towards him. His heart was so happy and indescribable. He raised his voice and said, "Don't run, you've already been addicted to drugs. Run on." Before he finished speaking, his face changed suddenly. He threw himself violently to the ground. Two thuds overhead. A gust of wind cut through his ear, and it hurt hotly. Glancing to the side between the electric light and flint, Another subordinate had fallen on the grass, his head tilted to the left, and a blood hole appeared in the middle of his eyebrows. Xuan Luzhao cursed loudly in his heart, knowing that this guard's marksmanship is very good. Fearing that the other party would shoot again, he flipped twice on the grass before jumping up. But this time, Xuan Huaifeng and Song Ren took the opportunity to break through his direction and rush into the woods. When the people chasing after him saw him fall, they were afraid that he would make a mistake, and they all messed up the direction of their tracking, ran towards this side, and shouted, "Commander! Don't mess around." Xuan Luzhao was ruthless. Took out his pistol, slammed it into the sky, and shouted, "I'm not fucking dead. Surround the forest and search. Xuan Huaifeng will stay alive, and all the others will be killed." After speaking, the first one rushed into the woods. Xuan Huaifeng and Song Ren fled into the woods, and they just ran to the densely wooded place. Fierce shouts were heard from all sides. From time to time, bullets slammed into the back of their feet, splashing dust. With the forest and the big stone blocking the line of sight, the two rushed to the left and right, and finally got rid of the chasing soldiers temporarily and hid behind a large stone. This round of rushing down for their lives, both of them were so tired that their heels cramped. They squatted behind the stone, and did not dare to take a deep breath, for fear of attracting the enemy in the woods, and their lungs were burning with pain. Song Ren said, "Adjutant Xuan, this is not going to happen. My feet are getting heavier and heavier. If we run further, we are afraid that our head will fall to the ground, and someone will cut it and sell it. This is not an ordinary drug. It seems that it can only be dissipated by passing through the water." His grandmother's, "I don't know where to find water in this hellish place." Xuan Huaifeng also felt that his strength was gradually running down, and he panted lowly, saying, "On the way I came, I saw this east side. There is a river." Song Ren nodded and said, "Okay, you run to the east. I'll stay here to block them for a while." Xuan Huaifeng asked, "What about you?" Song Ren's big bull-eye glared at him and said, "The guards are the ones who eat this bowl of rice. You are an adjutant, do you still want to grab a meal with me? The one surnamed Zan is going to arrest you. Now, if I go out again, they won't chase me, they will just chase you to the east. This way we both have a way out. Go." He pushed Xuan Huaifeng violently. Xuan Huaifeng didn't pay attention and was pushed halfway out without the cover of the stone. Suddenly, someone from the forest called out. Here, there were thrilling footsteps in all directions. Xuan Huaifeng had no room for hesitation, gritted his teeth and rushed to the east of the forest. A few gunshots rang out behind him, followed by a few screams, "Fuck, there's an ambush." Xuan Huaifeng knew that Song Ren's time for him was extremely limited, and he didn't dare to hesitate. But there were too many chasing troops in the woods, and the disparity between the enemy and us was too great. Xuan Huaifeng ran wild for a while, his footsteps getting heavier and heavier. And suddenly someone on the left shouted, "People are going east." 3 or 4 men shouted and chased after him. Xuan Huaifeng was flustered in his heart, but his hands were very calm. He took out the 2 Browning guns that Bai Xuelan had given him. He had 2 guns in his hand. Not a single hum. Both of them are guns in the eyebrows and the blood holes in the 2 eyebrows, as if measured by a ruler, are not happy at all. Everyone was terrified by this amazing marksmanship, and their footsteps suddenly slowed down. Taking advantage of this slowness, Xuan Huaifeng suddenly got into the tree and disappeared before their eyes.